Hello. We are live. Go away, VLC. We are live with prep for Kismet. What is Kismet, you may ask? Kismet is the Dungeon World game that I am streaming and GMing. Made up of people from the community of Skinny Ghost, aka Adam Coble, aka the creator of Dungeon World. Co-creator. It was also Sage Latora. They made an awesome game, and we are playing it, and we are streaming it, and we are having a very good time. Since we're streaming the play, I thought I would also stream my preparation for it. Which, spoiler alert, for Dungeon World, there is not that much. Beep. Basically, in Dungeon World and other games that are forks of Apocalypse World, GM prep is fairly simple and entirely narrative/story based. Basically, rather than in D&D, well, I mean, most of the time in D&D and other games, we say, okay, this is what's going to happen, and then when this happens, this is going to happen, and then when this happens, this is going to happen, and that is the only thing that's going to happen, and that's that. And then you plan for something to happen, and then the players go this way, and you're like, but no, you're supposed to go this way. That doesn't work out so well sometimes. And it's hard if you aren't good at improvising or just have no idea where something else could go besides the way you thought it was going to go. Which is why in games like this, we plan out the way things might go. We plan out the way things would go if players never touched it. And we plan out why things might go that way, what they want, what they don't want, what their impulses are. And so because of that, it's much easier for us to say, oh, okay, you didn't go here? That's fine. And then they're going to do this. Or, oh, okay, you're ignoring this? Okay, this is still going to happen then. Now, the Thieves Guild, since you didn't stop the burglary that you heard about, now the Thieves Guild has this magical egg. What are you going to do about that? Nothing? Okay. They're going to use the magical egg to summon their shadow god or whatever, which is cool because then having more, not what I'm trying to think of. You plan wide, not deep, basically. You go as deep as you need to when the players like bring that on. And you can plan other stuff too. If you have like an NPC that you really like or whatever, you can plan them and create them. But it's important to know that that might never happen. Now that we're actually into the game, we're past session 1. Session 1 was our main make everything, make the world for us to play in, and then make the players characters, and then start out strong and go do something. Yeah, the first session, by the way, this is their map. So we made this last session. Since we didn't do it the first session, I figured I would have the players help me make our small, it's not a world map, it's a section of our world map. This is like our kind of northern section of the world. So I guess starting from the top, we have the Morngol Mountains, which is where Akula is from. Akula is our berserker. He grew up in like a Viking-esque village. And we're not quite sure what happened, but basically he left because he feels that he was betrayed by them, that they did something terrible and left. And it's not quite clear. We might see that later, we might not. These X's over here is where his village, city, town, wherever he was, is located. Now we're down here. They started off here in the Silvermane Mansion, headed across the bridge. My ruler so I can plot our path. Yep, then over here across the bridge, fought a weird ghost thing, and then got about here. And then we started off the session, last session, kind of at this crossroads right here. Basically, they decide where they were going to go. Another part of it is since I plan around things and I just have ideas about where things could potentially go, I don't do things like you meet a person who gives you a letter that says you must go do this, or basically I don't tell them what I don't have like a whole thing that I want to have happen. So basically I tell them what's going on around them, and then they decide where to go from there. They left the mansion and ended up close to this town, Halford Gamgee, was named by our player Josh. Basically, the world, if you don't know, the world we're in right now is in the midst of a magic civil war, which is right now a lukewarm, fairly cold war. Basically, there's one side that is like magic is dangerous, we should use it, but we need to study it and figure it all out. The other side is no, magic is cool, awesome. Why not just use it? We're gonna do stuff and summon demons and use their power for ourselves and blah 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 blah. Not quite full on war yet, but there's been a few conflicts and relations between the two aren't so good. And Halford Gamgee is one of the main centers of the studious side. The studious side is called the Covenant of Azazel. You at notes. Yes, the Covenant of Azazel is like the wizard. We've kind of while we were planning it out, we kind of gave each of a kind of classy thing. Like one's more wizard-like in that they want to study magic and figure it out. One is more warlock-like in that they just want to use magic and they make pacts with things and such. We've seen the warlocky side, which are called the Ashernites. We saw them in action in the first session because where they started off was basically like a party. The Duke Silvermane was having a party. He's trying to marry off his daughter, gain some political power. Daughter wasn't too happy about it. She didn't like that. And so she decided to basically come out as an Asherite and turn the partygoers into zombies. So now she's some crazy person in the Asherite hierarchy, and we'll probably see her later. Last time we actually came up with a cool thing about how they name themselves basically after ideas and things. And so it's in my front actually. Her Asherite name is Riotous. And then Bear Glove is the leader, the person above her in this area. We also found out that Old Spice has some new scents that are great D&D names, like Bear Glove and Lion Hammer or Lion's Fist or something like that, like Wolf Thorn, Eagle's Claw, so, a bunch of weird cool things that just work perfectly as houses or council names or whatever. But so that happened the first session. Last session, the players started off about here, and so kind of wanted to figure out what they were going to do. They had somewhat of an idea to go to Halford Gamgee, which is a big center of importance in the Covenant peoples. It's a very big city. This is our poor mouse paint drawing, so you can't. It's hard to tell the specifics about this. But Halford Gamgee is a pretty big town. They decided not to go there. They decided that maybe we should say something, and so Cress, the ranger, played by Sarah, sent off her eagle to drop. They basically wrote a letter that said, "Hey, Ashernites took over the mansion. You might want to look into that. Whatever." Something to that effect, and then just basically had the eagle fly over, drop it, have the eagle come back, and hope that someone reads it. And they were like, "Yeah, we're good. Let's just go do something." So, because they decided not really to do anything, that means I get to say what happened, which is basically what Dungeon World, Apocalypse World games are all about. Unless the players do something or have a move and affect the narrative in a certain way, the GM says what happens. And sometimes I'm fair, sometimes I'm not fair. I go with what the world should be, with what makes sense in the world. because all of my NPCs are real people. They have wants and desires, factions and things, have things that they want to do, which actually, let's flip over to my front, which is the main way that GMs do prep in Dungeon World. So right now we have one prepared and pretty much like is a front ready to be done, have stuff done to it, which is our main campaign front. Basically, Magic War 1, which is all about the civil war between the two sides. This is like if there is like for what there is of an overarching story, this is that. Like this is what's happening in the background. Other fronts can come around that'll be like, oh, this is this one little thing that's going on that you guys have found. But this is like the main big thing that's happening in this world. And so since they decided to ignore it, they had said we're just gonna send a letter and hope that's fine. I'm gonna say something happened because of that. So basically what I can say is someone found it, and basically one of these sides has that information now. Whether that is the Covenant or the Asher Knights is up in the air. Basically, if the Covenant found it, then they know the Asher Knights are kind of moving in on their territory. Or at least there's a pretty big deal thing happened at the Silvermane Mansion, and they would probably send someone to investigate it. If the Asher Knights found it, then obviously the Covenant doesn't have it, so they wouldn't send someone to investigate it. The Asher Knights probably are like, heck yeah, this is awesome. I like the Asher Knights finding it better, especially because they they literally just sent the eagle over, dropped the letter with a little rock to make sure it didn't float weirdly, and just kind of drop fairly straight down, hoped someone got it, and then had her fly back and said that was fine. So literally anyone could have picked it up. Whether it was a guard, if it was a guard, it would be the council. But a random person could have picked it up. And this was like really late at night. Like it was like 2 a.m. or something like that. I think the Asher Knights found it. I don't think our Grim Portents are going to move on at all. The Grim Portents are what, like, basically signs that this danger is moving forward. Like the danger is basically a chunk of this front and like a big part of it. So this front has 2 dangers, which is the Council and the Asher Knights. And then the Grim Portents are like, hey, here's some signs that this is getting worse. Do something about it, or don't do something about it. It's going to keep getting worse if you ignore it. Right now, we're at the first Grim Portent for the Asher Knights, and we haven't gotten to any of them for the Council. Basically, these are driven by stuff that happens. Like, we decided that the Asher Knights attacked the mansion, and so as I was making this, I realized that this first Grim Portent has happened. Chaotic and wild magic events are becoming more common. The daughter of the Silvermane family summoned up, killed like 50, 60 partygoers, turned them into zombies, and then has now a small zombie army. A good portion of them were killed by the party when they escaped, but like she still has a pretty big zombie army and a mansion. Because the Duke, when they left, the Duke left with them. They got to that bridge that I showed you in the map, found a ghost, which was another weird, chaotic, wild magic event, and then the ghost killed the Duke. The party got across the bridge fine, but the ghost was like, nope, you're dead. And he killed the Duke. We don't quite know why. I know why, the players don't. We don't quite know why he died. So, I don't think the Grim Portents have advanced. What this... I'm saying someone found it and the Covenant didn't get this information. The Asher Knights have the information now. I don't think the Grim Portent is getting bigger at all. But basically now the Asher Knights know that like they have a mansion now, essentially. They have a big mansion pretty close to like an important part of the Covenant, our group. So I think I'm just going to put that in my notes under the Asher Knights. So like, yeah, letter that was written by the party to inform people of the mansion attack was found by the Astronites. They now... I always do that. I always, like, when I'm typing, I'll accidentally leave shift a little too long, and so I have a word like that. I don't like it. Weird habit to get. I'm not sure how to get rid of that habit. Basically, my pinky stays on like a millisecond too long. Yeah, they now have a decently sized mansion near Alfred Gamgee. The mansion's like a pretty big thing. Like it's like in the middle of it, like basically like there's a big, huge clearing in the middle of these woods, like a summer home for this Duke Silvermane, who's like a kind of big deal, not really, kind of, because like this is like basically a majocracy in this world. The Covenant's like the main governmental being, and then the Astronites are like this other side. And so like most basically mages are the ones that have political spots. And so yeah, the Duke basically he can do some magic enough to be considered like eligible for election. He's mostly just a dude that's like, I want power and I don't care how I get it. So yeah, that was basically his summer home, and it's just this huge mansion that is now controlled by the Astronites, Riotous, the daughter Silvermane, and I'm assuming it's going to be used as like a hiding out place, maybe like a meeting place for the Astronites. Some are coming there to use it as a base near the city. Riotous is, I'd say, like a lieutenant-ish, to give it like a hour times military ranking. Has a leadership position for being the one to take the mansion. Yeah, Bear Glove, like the leader of the Astronites in this area, I probably gave that to her. He's somewhere else. We're not quite sure where he is yet. We haven't talked. Yes, Siri is the only person out of this small cast so far that we've seen or met at all. And met is a strong word for, that means she sent a bunch of zombies after the players. That was fun. It's great when the players come up with stuff like stuff that they have to do themselves, and they were basically the ones that said, yeah, it'd be cool, because we did a straw poll for like the starting situation for our group, and so the straw poll like there was a tie for the two results that like topped it off, and it was like this big like event from like a higher up political guy and being the survivors of an attack. They turned that into this wedding to marry off the daughter Silvermane, and she turned them all into zombies. And so they had to fight a bunch of zombies that they basically created. And I just, okay, sure, let's send a bunch of zombies after you. What do zombies do? They try to bite you. Basically, that was what happened. It was fun. Let's go back to the map. And then we can see, yeah, basically kind of walking through the session helps me like figure out if I needed to prep anything around it. So what they got here, they sent the letter to Halford Gamgee. Then they moved down this road. Basically, we got here and kind of started to fill out this map more. And so west of Halford Gamgee, the road splits. There's villages, abandoned mines, like copper mines, other random things up here that we didn't specify too much, which is perfectly fine to do in Dungeon World. We can like, basically that's the whole point of it, is like come up with vague concepts first, and then as we need to, we specify. Down here is the Tabalan Desert, which is where the elves live. We have desert elves, which is cool. They wanted to go south, down here, to the Hag's Bog, which is a big old swampy swamp. I think they're aiming to go more south, like keep going this way. But the bog happens to go through the road. And so they got here to Hamlet, which is a tiny little swamp village. It's a lovely place. Half of it is basically in the swamp. It's a great place to take the kids. In Hamlet, they use they looted the Duke after he died, basically, and got all of he was wearing a bunch of fancy jewelry and such, and basically used that to throw a big party in Hamlet. And I said, that sounds like you are throwing a big party. Is the carouse move, which is actually a move in Dungeon World called carouse. When you return triumphant and throw a big party, spend 100 coin and roll plus any extra hundreds of coins spent. I counted, basically, they had a bunch of like jewelry and loot from the guy, and I counted each loot as like a +1 on it. Be like that much coin spent. Basically, they drank all of the alcohol this place had, ate most of the food that this place had, and threw just this huge party trying to be like, yeah, we're cool adventurers and everything, to all these like backwoods swamp people and impress them with stories of stuff that probably didn't happen. But they did really well in that role. They got a 12 or something. They got a 10 plus essentially. With a 10 plus, they get to choose 3 of these things. They chose the first 3. The last thing they did not choose, which means they could be entangled, ensorcelled, or tricked. That hasn't come into effect quite yet, but it's still open for me to do something with if I want to. I didn't know what to do with it right then, but I wanted to kind of leave it open because nothing like made sense at the time. So I think if I want to bring something back later on, we can feel free to do that. It's basically like if they had failed to roll and I get to make a move. So if we want to do that, we can, but we don't have to. They chose the first 3, and they got some really good information for it. Yeah, the first 3 are: you befriend a helpful NPC, you hear rumors of an opportunity, or you gain useful information. They got those 3 things. The useful information that they got was werewolf information about lycanthropes, because while they're traveling, I'm skipping ahead and going back because I remember things in the wrong order, but as they were going down, they encountered werewolves. They thought they were just regular wolves at the time, but they encountered a group of werewolves, and they fought them off. Unfortunately, Sharkosi, played by Seth Tahoe Biker on Twitch, he was bit by a werewolf. Like most of the other things were like flesh wounds, just like they got scratched, they got bit a little bit, so like nothing too much. He got bit pretty deep, and like a bunch of like the wolf like drool, saliva, infection stuff got into him, and so I've been strongly hinting that he now has werewolfitis. That's what we're gonna call it, werewolfitis. So he is really interested in werewolves right now because it hasn't been like made abundantly clear that he is a werewolf now, but it's been strongly hinted that he might be at some point a werewolf. So he got a book about lycanthropy. Unfortunately, Giles, who is our wizard, played by Josh, he was not here this time, and so like he can't really talk with him about what he knows about it. He could have tried to like someone could have tried to spout lore, but none of the players right now have like a high enough intelligence where they felt okay about that, because if they fail, I get to make a move and do some bad stuff. But next time, I think he's gonna have a conversation with Giles about it, and I gave them a book about lycanthropy, which is basically taken from the bag of books in this book. The bag of books basically says like, for the whole bag, you get to just pull out a book and say what it's about, and then you get a +1 to spout lore. I'm basically giving them a specific use of that about lycanthropy. And so if someone uses the book and tries to spout lore about lycanthropes, they get a +1 to the roll, which is it's a good way to just kind of give you a little bit of cool information about stuff in this. The other things that they got from this big whole party that they threw was befriending a helpful NPC and hearing rumors of an opportunity. I combined those into one of being the NPC, who was Aseru. I like Aseru. I like her. She's got a bunch of like stuff about her that just makes her pretty cool. She's an elf, and she is from the Tabalan Desert of the elves. She's like an explorer. She wasn't happy just sitting around in the desert doing stuff, and so she wanted to venture around doing stuff. And she's actually she's pretty interested in history, and there's a specific thing that she's really interested in, which is this being called Tartula. I actually didn't put it in my notes, so I'm gonna write that down right now so I can remember what I said about it. Tartula is like, it's not a deity, it's not like a god or anything. It's this weird being that's like comprised of energy that can like shapeshift and do things. Like, it's very unclear about what it exactly was. Most of the time, anyone that's heard of it thinks it's like a wives' tale, like a children's thing that you tell. Like basically, it's like almost like, no, this is like, it's like the boogeyman or whatever. But there's like people that believe that Tortula actually exists, and Saru has done a lot of work and research talking to these people, and she came to the party and basically said, I know I know a place that was important to Tortula. Yeah, I'll actually write this stuff. So it Tortula was being comprised of basically, yeah, I'll just say mythical being said to have no true form, shapeshifter, like basically it's like a magical entity. It's like, yeah, it's like, it's genderless. It's not like, it's formless. There's nothing about it except for that it just has this name that's just somehow known. It just kind of went around like in ye old times and did stuff. It's very vague right now exactly what it is. Like believed mostly to be like a tall tale. If I spell it right. Tall tale, like a children's thing about like, oh no, you should like be true to yourself because beings that have no form aren't true to themselves, or whatever. Some random lesson that they want kids to know. Some believe it was real, and Saru has tracked down an important location in the Hag's Bog. And then we found out Sharkosi, he leveled up and picked basically an ability where we kind of changed a little bit. It's technically a fighter move for fighters in this game, get like basically a special weapon that they get to design. He took a fighter move that basically lets fighters like talk to their weapon and like the spirits within the weapon and get ideas about the current situation. It's basically opening your mind from Apocalypse World, but flavored to a special weapon. We changed it to a special item because Shar has an item. He's a barbarian, and barbarians get like a special item from their homeland. And he said his is like this chain that's important to his people. Basically, like they make it with like another person, and that's supposed to be like this like symbolic bond between them and that person. And so it's very important to him. And we flavored it a little bit to change it to be that item rather than a special weapon, which I'm perfectly okay with because that sounds awesome. And if he loses the chain, he can't use it, which is essentially the same thing. So he used that, and basically through this vision that he got from the chain, he found out that this this place that they found is the resting place of Tortula. And the place that they found is like this big old pyramid kind of place. They got in there, and then that's when we came up with these two gods, because we hadn't really talked about like deities or the pantheon of our world. So I had the players come up with these two gods. The first one I basically said, God of Shadows, tell me about the God of Shadows, Cress. And so she gave me this name and then all this cool information about it. And then I said to Corey, who plays Akula, there's another god called Fasco. What's Fasco all about? And he gave me this, like, two really cool, like, not just straightforward gods. And so this place is like half monument altar to these two gods, half resting place of Tortula. They found a secret door because everywhere has secret doors, of course. Went down and we left off the session with them and going to another room, and there's movement and something within the room that they're going to find out what it is next time. And so now we have to figure out what those things are and some more stuff about this dungeon, because we're officially now in a dungeon. Hooray! Sure. Yeah, let's open up my Dungeon World PDF. I'm I'm thinking that there's skeletons right now, like a few skeletons, and that they're also not specters. Where'd the shadows go? Yeah, shadows right here. So I'm thinking maybe like 2 shadows and 2 skeletons, or 3 skeletons, a group of them, or whatever. Something fairly basic right now, just to start off the dungeon. And I think we can make another page for Tula's resting place. Northern map. So we zoom out a little bit here. I'm so upset my mouse that I normally use is broken. So I had to send it in for repair, and now I'm using this not so good mouse. It's okay, but yeah. Yeah, let's draw out what they have so far. Actually, let's zoom in a little bit. Go down, down. So entered, and there's this big. I know it's gonna. I know what it's gonna look like before I draw it, but big circular room, which is the main room with like the altar in the center. And there you have it. Accidentally drawing genitalia is, another a trademark of tabletop games. And so they found a secret door over here that leads down. It goes this way. 4 map drawings for the win. And there's another big circular room over here. That's about all we have in the map so far. So if we zoom in down here, it's pretty small, map-wise at least, but whatever. Basically, it's just a mappy map so they can look at place as a whole and where they've gone. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm thinking it's going to be a few skeletons and a few shadows in there right now. Because this place has been abandoned for a long time, so there's not going to be like people walking around here. So I don't think so. It could be. It could very well be. Who knows? Yeah, for the first room, I think it's just a few skeletons and a few shadows that they shouldn't have too much trouble with, especially that they have a hireling. It took me a while to find the hirelings in the book. Once I did, yeah, the hirelings are very, very easy to do in this game, and also easy for me because the players control it. If they don't say that the hireling does anything, then they don't help. They're just kind of palling around, avoiding getting killed. Actually, they almost really pissed her off last time because it was partially my fault because they thought that this secret door was like tiny. I thought I had explained it well enough, but apparently I hadn't. They thought the secret door was tiny, but it's people size, so they could fit through it. And so they're about to just leave, and she was like, "What the hell? I led you here. Why are we just leaving?" And they're like, "There's nothing here." And like, "There's a secret door right there," which I should have specifically said it's large enough for you to walk through, I guess. That's on me. That's on me. Sorry. But yeah, so we are here. Erase. Fire. We are here right now. Whee! The fire effect's really cool. Makes me explode too. Yeah. And dragon's breath. And fireball. So cool. Roll20 is awesome. Yeah, we're there. So I'm thinking shadows and skeletons. And I guess I'm not sure if I should make a front for this dungeon or if I just call it a dungeon. I don't think the front is for like an overarching like a story point. And this is just a dungeon. I guess it could be it would be a danger in a front. So this could be part of a front. It could be a cursed place. Potentially, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's just I'm thinking it's just going to be a dungeon. It's just going to be a plain old regular dungeon. 203. Yeah, let's find the dungeon section in the book. Making a town, making a village, campaign map, stuff, monsters. Those are monsters. I don't want that. That's about cities and towns. That's how about in the opening part of the book? Huh. I know that thing about dungeons because there's like dungeon moves you can make. I'm assuming it's in the GM section probably. People. Dungeon moves. There we are. We found it. Okay, 168. I'm going to find that in the PDF so I can show it on screen. 168. Those are GM moves, and here's the dungeon moves. And so the dungeon moves are basically what lets me as a GM make and alter dungeons as we go along. We're supposed to map out the area. Most of these require to add a new room or element to the map. And so as they went along, we found the new room, and I used the move point to a looming threat. As they were going along, they had a light source, and they kept seeing like weird moving shadows on the very edges of their light. And so that was me pointing to a looming threat, and they're going to encounter the threat in this next room. And so I think actually we don't need to do much with the actual dungeon itself. These moves are going to help me basically as they go along. Basically, it's as a GM, whenever the players look to you and are like, so what happens? I can look to these moves and say, okay, make them backtrack. There's a keyhole, and you remember seeing something back 2 rooms ago. You have to go get it, or something like that. Not that lame and easy, but basically, I make these moves and figure things out as they make sense within the narrative. I want something that I guess I want this dungeon to be bigger. I guess I want there to be like a faction that they find, or like another type of creature or something. So maybe I'll have like the new faction type of creature at some point. Yeah, so a faction is a group of creatures united by a similar goal. Once you introduce them, you can begin to make moves and cause trouble for the players with those creatures or NPCs. Introducing means giving some clear sensory evidence or substantiated information. Don't be coy. The players should have some idea of what you're showing the presence of. You can, however, be subtle in your approach. No need to have the cultist overlord waving a placard and screaming in the infernal tongue every single time. A hard application of this move will snowball directly into a combat scene or an ambush. Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of figure that out as we go along into the actual dungeon, because I'm not sure what is going to happen in the dungeon, which is the beauty of this. We play to find out what happens. Motto of the game. Over here, there could be a big room where they find a magic sword, or they could find Tortula sitting over here and like, hey bro, what's up, Chaka bra? And then Tortula gives them all magical insight into something. Who knows? We're gonna figure that out. Since we don't have much else to go on with fronts, I think I'm actually about done with my prep. I just wanted to draw this out, kind of figure out the prep or the thing for our main front. And I think I'm pretty much good besides that. I think basically the prep for games like this come from doing these and adjusting your fronts as needed, and then just absorbing things outside of the game and taking them, wrapping them up in a Dungeon World bow, and then throwing it at the players and saying, hey, look at this new thing. So I think the rest of my prep for this just needs to be watch some movies, do some stuff and get some ideas about what could be in this dungeon. And it doesn't even have to be like fantasy stuff. Like I don't have to watch Lord of the Rings 3 times. I could watch another TV show or the thing, and just take an idea from that, like take a cool character from that, and then peel them apart down to their core, and then throw some fantasy color onto them, and then make them something in this game. Which is what I'm gonna have to do. I might try to watch something like about a creepy place or whatever, and see if I can take something from that and throw it into here. I do have some ideas about this. Since it is Tortula's resting place, I'm thinking they're obviously gonna have to find something related to Tortula, or else I would be upset if I didn't find something about Tortula in here. So I don't think they're gonna literally find Tortula in here, and he's just gonna be like, "Hey, bro, what's up?" Something about Tortula, though, definitely is gonna be in this place. Since he's a being of energy, maybe like a portion of him. So I guess they could not they could find his remains. Maybe he died. He is like this weird otherworldly being, but they can die. I guess we could say that they can die, and then they're gonna find his remains, and maybe they feast upon them. I don't know what the heck they're gonna do with their players. Player characters always freak you out and surprise you. I kind of let them find Tortula's like remains at some point, and what those remains will look like, we'll kind of have to figure out. And then maybe something else. Obviously, it's not just going to be shadows and skeletons in the dungeon. There's going to be more stuff here. And then traps, of course, too. They don't have a thief, so traps are going to be interesting if they find some. So yeah, I think I'm good for the prep for this, then. Just need to absorb some media and fill the old brain with cool things.